Ooh. So welcome everyone. This is our first meeting. I'm really excited about it. And Stamatis is joining. I'm still letting people join one by one as they come and roll in.
Hello.
Hey Stamatis, good morning. Oh, good day wherever you are.
Yeah, likewise.
So how do people want to start with it? Like I thought first we can do a round of introductions, quick introductions, and then take it from there. Kyle, what do you recommend?
Yeah, we might be small enough. We have that ability this time around. Maybe as we grow, we won't have that luxury, huh?
Yeah, we'll just do a delta on that, right? New people introduce themselves.
Sure.
So who wants to start? In my screen, I see first Albert. You want to go first?
Sure. So my name is Albert Wong. I work at a company called Seller Data. We're an open source query engine / OLAP database. We support all the open table formats like Iceberg, Hoodie, Delta Lake, Pymon, also Apache Hive too. And so for many of those, we can absolutely read, and in a few of those, we can write. And our plan is to become the fastest and quote unquote cost performance wise the cheapest for you to run Open Data Lakehouse.
Awesome. Kyle?
Hey all, my name's Kyle. I work at OneHouse and really excited about the future for XTable, something that can help us bridge the gaps between the table formats and make data more interoperable for users. So happy to be here.
Awesome. Next, I see Vinod in my screen.
Hey folks, this is Vinod. I run OneHouse, the company behind managed data lakes and stuff, and also PMG chair on Apache Hoodie, and yeah, great to see this thing kick off.
Tim?
Hey, yeah, I work at OneHouse as well, and yeah, excited to see where we can take XTable.
Dipankar.
Hey everyone, yeah, my name is Dipankar. I work for OneHouse as a DevRel team member, and I've been involved with projects such as Apache, Arrow, Iceberg, and recently Hoodie. Really excited about XTable as well. Yeah.
Ismail?
Hi, nice to meet you, everyone. I work for Microsoft. That's a surprise for some of you. The Microsoft is here. I work in Fabric. I'm a liaison in the DevRel side with the open source projects, let's say. And I used to be involved into other open source projects. I'm still a committer and maintainer of Apache Avro, and I used to work a lot in Apache Beam, which is Google's Spark or Fling or whatever you want to call it. Where I used to be the top contributor, not paid by Google, which I always joke means that I'm an idiot, but that's a different story. So quite excited to be here. So
nice to meet you. I did not know. Awesome.
Yeah.
Jesus?
Hey, hello everyone. My name is Jesus. I'm part of Microsoft of the Gray Systems Lab. Been involved with open source for quite some time, contributing to Calcite, Hive, and others in the SF. And it's great to see you all. My camera is off. I don't know if I will be able to fix it before the meeting is done, but yeah, it's great to see you once again.
Stamatis. You're muted. We cannot hear you. Okay. Yeah, while Stamatis is rejoining, I'm Ashwin. I'm also working at Gray Systems Lab at Microsoft with Jesus, and really excited to work on XTable. This is, I was telling Albert, this is one of the important projects for us in our vision to support read and writes of all table formats. So really excited on this to work with all of you on this project. Hey, welcome, Stamatis. Can you try again? Okay. So Stamatis is one of our mentors, and he is helping us drive the project in the Apache way. This is what I know. So while he's
Better now?
yes.
Yes. Yeah, shed bones. I can never figure out how they work. I mean, some stuff are difficult to configure in Ubuntu and Chrome and all these things together. Anyway, yeah, I work for Cloudera. I'm a member of the compiler team, mainly working on Apache Hive. I'm also contributing to various Apache projects. I'm a PMC of Calcite and Hive. And yeah, I'm spending a bit of time on other projects like Tez, now XTable or XTable. And yeah, so glad to be here.
Welcome. Awesome. I think we have covered everyone. We know the others. Do you have any suggestion what you want to start discuss first? Like, I have a few agenda items, but we can vote first. What would you like to discuss first?
Yeah, maybe around the room. Sorry, I couldn't have my camera on today as well. I'm still recovering from something. So yeah, maybe like a round table to see if we can get a live agenda item and then we can stack rank and go over them. I'm happy to start. I just want to like chat about the first release and how we make progress towards that. I think that's the biggest thing in my mind. We need to get a nice first release of this thing out there, right? So people can start using it.
What I'll do is whatever we mention, I'll just start writing it in here in the notes in the chat, and then we can discuss those topics one by one. So Vinod mentioned about the first release agenda.
Like kind of on that same note of yeah, maybe creating any what remains in terms of like renaming. I think that a lot of like classes, not the packages, but the actual class names have reference to like the old one table project. And then maybe yeah, assigning like a small group to just like tactically go out and put up a GitHub discussion or something on that. Any suggestions from the community we could start.
Right. I also had two more things. One is what Jesus just mentioned. So we have various ways to communicate. One is to the dev list, and the other is to Slack. Obviously, everything communication has come back to the mailing list. But I also think we need some sort of wiki also where we can keep the documents and discussions which are in transient mode and which need collaboration, some sort of channel like that. For example, even for the agenda document, I was thinking if we could have a wiki, we could start collaborating there on adding those agenda items, and then we can take them one by one. So, but I heard the other way also that sometimes having too many channels means that people have to multiplex between multiple forums, and things get dropped over time. So that is one thing I wanted to discuss. And the other one was the commit process which we have right now. We had some confusion last week about how we commit. There is no squash and merge anymore. So that is one item which was on my list as well.
Yeah, I think asking for the commit, maybe it's related or a different item. But I think in general also, I can provide a little bit of context on why we are using the Azure resources, right? And we could also discuss whether this is something that we want to continue doing or we want to move fully to GitHub, or what is basically the what people are thinking about this, because there is a little bit of context that comes from the one table project, and probably it's good that everybody's on the same page.
Perfect. Also in the chat, all the items are listed, and we can pick up one of those and start talking about it and make progress. So maybe the first release is something which is hot on everyone's mind, I guess. So the mentors, Jesus, and you could guide us on some of that.
Sorry. So is the question about how to head towards the first release, or what's the current status and so on, or?
So probably in my mind, the question is like, what is the urgency of the first release? Is it something we have to push further? What is how much we should keep as a scope, and what is the bare minimum requirement for release? Without these fixes, you cannot have a first release, and first release is something which should go by the second status report to the board, or by the third, something like that. I don't know if there are any.
Oh, I see.
So mainly on the Apache process side, I have those questions that what does the Apache process expect from us?
I see. Yeah, I can take I can give a few thoughts off the top of my mind, but I'm sure Stamatis, Vinod, and others, maybe they also have additional comments. So I think, in terms of milestones, right, on what we see through when we are mentoring a project through incubation, or going with a project through incubation and so on, right? The first one, basically, you have to move everything to the Apache infra and so on. The next one is really the first release, right? That is a very big milestone. And then the next one is really community growth, right? And then, you kind of check those boxes, and you can really start making a strong case for incubating and being a top level project, right? So the project has been, you already saw it. We already have it in the Apache infra. Now, in terms of what we should be doing for the first release, I think it's a lot of the small, not repetitive, but tasks that are mostly mechanical and we need to do, right? So adding the license headers everywhere, checking that all the dependencies are compliant with the Apache license. And then, there will also be some automation that we need to do. I don't know if this has changed, but, releases, we're still, we have to push some artifacts to SVN. I don't know if this has changed. I don't know if anyone has been a release manager recently for Apache projects and so on, but there is some automation that is going to have to go over there. And someone has to go through the first release process and, fix things as we go and so on. But those are things that kind of come to mind. And then, I think the second question you're bringing is more about, what we consider as a community, right? Not from Apache, but as a community that we should do for the first release. I did some parts at the end of last week about repackaging things under the Apache namespace. I would say that, also changes in names to, I think the first releases, there is going to be some APIs breakage, right? I don't think we're going to be able to avoid that, but maybe, prevent it as much as possible would be great. And in order to do that, I think we just need to, to check what we need to do in terms of, renaming classes, maybe some of the methods and so on. Those are things that come to mind. I'm sure there are more things that we need to take into account, but, off the top of my head. Yeah. I don't know others, what others think.
Yeah, from my side, I don't have much to add to what Jesus said. Most of the steps for releases, at least, are documented under the incubator site or there are various articles online. So it is clear. There are parts that clearly say how we can proceed and what kind of disclaimers we have to put for every part. In principle, the project can still do non-Apache releases. If you want to block users or there are other deliverables that people depend on it, so it's not forbidden. But what goes to an Apache release, an incubator at least release, we have to include the appropriate disclaimers. So to some extent, some things are permitted, depending on the disclaimer file that we have. So anyway, yeah, I don't want to repeat what is already there in the incubator side, but yeah, depending on the urgency, I mean, yeah, I would say that like in the first 3 to 6 months, it should be good to have a first Apache incubator release.
Perfect. And actually, I have a question which also ties back to what Tim was mentioning. We do have to rename the classes. Is it like from everything which has one in the prefix? So there are a lot of model classes in XTable which start with one, as because the previous project name was one table. So it is one data file, one schema, one field, and so on. So all these need to be renamed. Is that something which is important?
I would do it. Again, speaking from scars from Hoodie, right? Hoodie had to be renamed, but we were already in production at several companies, so we could not, like, if we just rename dot hoodie, the metadata folder still says dot hoodie, right? We just did that. Nobody can do a rolling upgrade. so we renamed the project, and I need to get people to kind of, like, not name things one consistent way in the code, and it's just a headache, right? And then we got in that kind of like weird zone. So given we don't have an official release yet, right? I mean, one table, didn't release anything from one table, right? So any official Maven release is going to go through Apache to begin with. So that's actually a good spot, which is like go rename everything, I feel.
Perfect. Perfect. So the next meta question I have there is like, do we put X before everything?
I'm wondering if this is something we should put up on like one of the GitHub discussions. I think no, but maybe there's like a better way to name things. So just from like a how that will look in all of the classes names, because it'll be like capital X and then the next letter is also capital. I just have some pet peeves with casing, I think, of how that's actually going to look. I looked at it earlier. But we should, I think, put that up. I think also just even some more nomenclature things around, we call things like clients, which I think talking with some people on GitHub discussions has invoked like a certain like feeling of like a HTTP client, whereas it's more like a metadata reader, writer, generic type thing. So like, I think there's even like stuff beyond just the one prefix versus not that we should maybe consider and just get it out of the way and make sure that the way that we talk about it and the way the community talks about it line up. And that way there's less confusion in the future.
Yeah, I'm +1 on moving that discussion, having that discussion in the open. I think it's one of those great occasions that, someone might chime in also, even with, based on their experiences. It's not like they have even to know much about XTable to give an opinion on this. So who knows? But in any case, yeah, it should be discussed, either, GitHub discussions that we have enabled, mailing list. I mean, yeah, in the open.
Sounds good, I think. So what you're saying is that we start a discussion and we leave it open for 48 hours and then quickly, because this is something which everyone is getting impacted very now.
Yeah, this discuss, you can do discuss thread and the discuss thread. You can wait a little bit till it stabilizes, and then you can start a quick vote and then move on from there, I think. Yeah.
Right. Kyle, you want to ask your question here?
Yeah, I was just putting in chat so I didn't interrupt people, but I was wondering if anyone has an affinity towards trying to make those code name changes. It seems like it's on the hot path for first release, so it'd be good one that like someone grabs it by the horns and gets it done.
So what if we do this? Just a suggestion that we create this discussion thread, and as things evolve, we also create issues identifying individual classes which need to be renamed, and then new committers or existing members, as they get time, they can pick those issues. So we can tag them with beginner issues also, and one person takes ownership and then they run on that particular class. Might be conflicts in the meantime, but maybe that way we give everyone an opportunity to contribute.
Oh, cool. So you think there's ways to break it up and then multiple people can actually rib on it?
I believe so. Cool. Any other thoughts on this one? First release versus and renaming and so on. Cool. Moving to the next one, which is from Kyle, to add a community page on the website as well.
Yeah, I think that should be, I can help with that as well. That should be pretty easy. I can make just a lightweight page that just has the helpful links for dev mailing list, of course, the GitHub. You mentioned, do we want to put like a link to, we'll probably tell people when the community meeting is here, right? And then if we had a document that holds the agenda items or things like that, if that's useful. If people have other ideas that should go on there, seems like a good idea.
Yeah. I think we absolutely need that. In fact, every time there are a lot of people who reach out to us and then we repeat the same thing that, oh, join the Slack channel. This is how you join the Slack channel and so on. So this might be really, really helpful and probably the first thing we should handle. The next, anyone else, or should I move to the next topic? Cool. The next one is on the wiki, which I think I needed for even the agenda. And I just wanted to take a quick feedback here that what do you people think about having one more avenue for discussions? Do you have it for Hoodie, by the way? A wiki in the Apache infra?
Okay. Yeah, we basically copied what Kafka was doing, which was like a CWiki, and then we have CWiki, we have Jira, we have GitHub. Like we have basically all three, and to your point, it does cause a some amount of overlap. So I can quickly share the trade-offs. CWiki, people complain all the time that it doesn't load, it's like slow and blah, 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 like all the time. So we put a lot of stuff in there, and steadily over time we've moved a lot of the documentation to the site itself. Like for our RFCs, for example, our design docs, we put it in the CWiki, and it's not discoverable. Nobody goes there. People comment. I don't know how this works for other projects, but from Hoodie standpoint, we then moved everything over to like the GitHub itself, and moved a lot of this from the docs. So right now, CWiki is not very actively used. I would say, for the most part, people comment on GitHub pull request if they want to have design discussions. That was like a main key activity for the wiki. Kafka Kips, for example, I think are still on CWiki. Right, we do CWiki and dev mailing lists. That's how you're supposed to have the discussion in the dev mailing list and then keep the CWiki up to date. That is how they do it. We used comments on CWiki directly, and then finally, kind of approve, but we've now got everything back to GitHub issues. Our release guide now sits in the GitHub wiki. There's a GitHub wiki too, right? So for stuff that the committers or the people with right access to the repo is mostly going to review, land, and write and maintain, I think the GitHub wiki does a good job. If we want to get external contributors, added to the project and contribute and stuff, then the Apache CWiki is a good choice. But again, we could probably just reuse the GitHub pull request with a special branch, same branch, to get design discussions kind of set up there. So that's also where I was going with the GitHub discussions versus dev list kind of thing. We need a forum where people can propose things and then before they go to like a formal design doc, right? So I don't know. So I'm just like throwing a bunch of things out there, but overall, we need a place for design docs that people are proposing, some process for people to propose new changes, and then through that life cycle, people need to write this down, and we need to review this and all of that, right? And then we need a place for all the release guide, the maturity matrix, like these kind of things that people with right access to the repo need to track. So those are the two major use cases I see.
Anyone else has any opinion?
I'm basically among those people that say the less tools, the better, because otherwise people get confused where they should do stuff. And yeah, I mean, a general comment for all Apache projects is that the dev list should be the first and primary method of communicating, exchanging ideas and everything. So everything should start from there, and then where exactly it goes, it can depend. I mean, it starts with a discuss thread, then you can attach a Google document and people can review. You can link to a pull request with ideas. You can link to an issue. So yeah, I don't think we have to add yet another thing on top because, yeah, I mean, people have, each one has its own liberty of doing things. And yeah, some people like Google Docs, some people like describing things in an email. I guess it's a lot of variety of things. So, and I mean, once something is finalized, if we want to keep like the document, the design document, like in the final form, then at that point we can't really commit it to the website, have a special section and commit the final version. So this is the most interesting part. All the rest can be, yeah, I mean, can be full detailed emails, can be Google Docs, that after they finalize, they become a page. So yeah, that's my take.
Looks like we have a consensus there. It's the same feeling everyone has expressed. So cool, no wiki. Any thoughts, or I move on the next topic?
So the only thing I'd say is I think if we can somehow use the GitHub discussions in some way alongside the like a dev thread, that'll be good because people I saw this for Hoodie and as well as Kafka when I was at Confluent for a while. Like it's very hard to actually express any rich text ideas and these kinds of things in the mailing list. The mailing list still doesn't take images. So I think if we can have like some streamlined way to say, hey, start a discussion thread here after you start a mailing list, and maybe we keep one of them like up to date or something, may be good. It was we solved it by having diagrams in some design doc folder, right? Sorry, the CV key. If you look at what Kafka does, Kafka has the mailing list discussion, and then from time to time they would say, go now take a look at the KIP document, it's updated, and then somebody would synthesize the discussion, go update like the KIP, which is like their version of the RFC or something, right? The design doc basically, and then they would actually bring that back to the thread. And so people can now go read that and do future discussions on top. So we need some means for people to create a document someplace. And I think that's the only thing I would say. We could just say Google Docs or whatever, right? Google Docs, Microsoft Docs, something, or we can be loose like that, or we can be, but we need to say something there, I feel.
Perfect. I think I totally agree with you. When you say Google Docs, I heard it earlier also from Stomatis. You mean our own personal, from our personal drives, and those will be individual documents, is it?
With Hoodie PMC, what we did was we created a Google account shared that is ultimately owned by private blah, whatever. And then we would like do things there. But I think Spark, if you look at Spark, essentially you have like a Google Docs with some open permissions. Anybody can create that, and then you stick it into a Jira or a issue or something. That's also an easy, frictionless way to go about it. Essentially, anybody should be able to comment on it. Of course, any logged in Google user, but of course, the issue with this is like you'll get some random comments, like meaning like not I'm not talking technically random. People paste spam and all that. I mean, I don't know how well that is handled, but we've had that happen even in CWiki if you kept it open. So there are trade-offs here, but I think we can. I'm personally I'm not very opinionated on this, but you just probably need something else for people to share a idea in a doc form or like written a write-up basically, and then kind of evolve it based on the discussions in the mailing list.
Perfect. Thanks.
Yeah, I think, by the way, just my 2 cents. So what Vinod said and Stamati said, I think it's well aligned. I think how we can frame it, in fact, is you have we can have a path where, we can have flexibility, right? We can suggest, okay, this is how you can do it. But if you want to use any of the other tools, that's fine, as long as it starts in the mailing list. The main takeaways is driven back to the mailing list and so on. So I think what both Vinod and Stamati said is well aligned. It is just, we can still give the flexibility if someone wants to use another tool, but we can have a kind of easy default path that people can follow if they don't know what to do, right? Yeah.
So perfect. Thank you. I'll move to the last topic which we had listed early above, or maybe second last. So, so this is about the squash and merge. You had some comments? You want to start this discussion?
I mean, one thing I can comment is the status of the CI. You mean that? I can touch upon that a little bit.
That
or,
and
or
the
even the
squash and
commit.
merge issue. Yeah.
Right. So yes, I mean there are multiple ways of going about this. So the in that commit, basically what I wanted to do is just to get something there to get us going. But it's something that we can discuss. You have these 3 different buttons in the when you want to merge from the UI, right? One of them, the merge one, I think it is, and if I don't get the name right, just someone chime in and tell me. But the merge one is the one that doesn't keep linear history. I think that one is very difficult in my experience to manage, to know what is going on and so on. So that one, many projects, they might disable it. That's what I did in that first commit. And then there are 2 other options, right? One that basically rebases questions and commit, I think, and the other one just that will rebase and commit all the changes as individual commits, right? And the problem, I mean, I think the squash and commit, to be honest, is in my opinion the best model, in the sense that you will get a single commit, and if the commit was too large, maybe it's an indication that you should have a split into multiple PRs and so on. But the problem is that if you do it from the from the UI, it doesn't. And this is something that Stamatis pointed out. It doesn't keep the committer email, so you don't know who has basically committed that, or it's more difficult to track who has committed that code. If you do with the individual commits, apparently this is not an issue, and it uses some, by the way, generic no reply GitHub email address. I think we're checking the other day with Ashwin. The other one is that you will get a bunch of commits. So I think it's something that we need to discuss about. What is the model that we want to follow? What is convenient and or not? But that is something, because, for instance, on Friday a commit went in by Kyle that is like 15 commits, right? So I think probably we need to. I mean, this is part of what Vinod was saying as well, right? Document a little bit how what is the process, right? No, sorry. I mean, this is not, it happens and we're all starting, so there is nothing to be sorry about. But yeah, I mean, we need to, I think, document a little bit till people get used to what we want to do. So for instance, I think in Calcite, at the very end of the PR, maybe you ask the contributor to rebase, squash the commit so you can cherry pick it easily, right? Things like that. So maybe, it's just something we need to mention that, hey, this is what we should be doing. Committers obviously should be aware of this and do it that way. Otherwise, yeah, if there is other process, we can also follow other process, right? But that's a little bit what comes to mind with the commits and what happened.
Yeah, actually, on this, especially just to mention to Kyle, like, this is not your mistake. Even I didn't know this is what will happen. I didn't expect it like that. And it created. So I committed that, and Kyle was the author. And obviously, it retained the linear history and the email address from the committer, but it obviously messed up. It created a lot of noise. So till we discuss and we arrive at discussion, any new commits, at least the committer should take responsibility to make sure that it is squashed by the author, and then only merge the PR, right?
Yep.
Yeah, I mean,
Sounds good.
obviously, the committer can do the squash himself. I mean, it's not necessary to ask the author, but
so that's the problem, Stamati. So now, and maybe that's something also that we should be changing, but the branch is protected right now. So it has another rule, the ASF YAML, that basically will prevent you from doing a commit if it's not coming from a PR. I think that is happening also right now. So and that's a rule, by the way, that, for instance, is not in Calcite. So, again, and maybe, that rule can be removed if we want to do this a little bit more, streamline it and so on. Maybe that rule shouldn't be there. I think, again, I took a combination of things that look reasonable, but in all honesty, there is no way to test it until you have committed, right? So it was like, okay, maybe this process is not the most streamlined one. I mean, we can again iterate and fix it, right? I think, in fact, it's the right time to do this and then create those kind of documented and create those habits, right? And that's it. So maybe we should remove that enforcer rule from there to make things a little bit easier for committers.
Yeah, I'm not. Maybe it's not necessary in the sense that I think when somebody opens a PR, there is a button that is by default checked, which says allow edits for maintainers. So basically, this means that every committer in the project can push to the PR branch.
I see.
This is open by default. So I can even force push and crash everybody's PRs in every project that I'm a committer. But yeah, usually this is left on. And that's why
I see. So you're saying that we could even keep that rule because as long as you have edit permission, you can basically squash yourself on that branch, in the branch of the contributor, and then just merge it from there, basically.
Yeah, I mean, just details, but yeah.
Yeah.
There is a flexibility. The part that we agree is like we should put them written down in the contribution guidelines.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in either case, all of us, all the committers and all have to be cautious about this. Either commit the squashed merge on the author's PR or request the author to squash it before it is merged, one of the two, but not press it like what I did last Friday. Cool. I think that is, Kyle, did you have anything on the website you want to talk about, or are we done with the list?
You can treat mine on the
website
lowest of the
docs.
priority. Mm-hmm. If there were other items, you can get to any others before that one. It's low priority.
I think we have covered all. I just wanted to talk about.
I want to touch very quickly upon the CI, but we can also do it after other topics. It's fine. It's not.
Do the CI one first. CI one sounds more important.
Okay. Yes. Okay. So in Okay, so I guess a little bit of backstory here is that when we're working on one table, right, we're hitting some of the GitHub limits, right, and there were some resources, compute resources in Azure that we could secure, and then we would run the CI pipeline through Azure, right? Now that was as easy as running it through GitHub, really, because you can install this GitHub application or plugin right into the GitHub organization of Azure pipelines. And again, basically, the process, YAML file looks a little bit different, but again, the process is kind of very similar. Now, the problem when we came to the ASF is that you cannot install an app with write permission on the main repo. So we cannot install that, Azure Pipelines application. So then what I did, and this is something that I kind of copied from Hoodie and also from Flink, I tried to fix that to have CI as quick as possible. And then, I was like, okay, if we want to change the model, we change it, right? But where basically you use some, mirror for the main repo, as well as some other repo where, for each PR. So for the mirror, what it does basically is that it, and by the way, this was documented also in that commit. But for the mirror, basically what it does is mirroring the main, and it will run the test on that mirror, right? And then it propagates it back to the Apache one. It just reflects because the batch is pointing to the other repo. So that's for the mirror. For the PRs, what it does is that it creates a branch in another repo, and then it runs the Azure pipelines will run the test on that branch, and again, then it will bring the results back, and that's why you see a bunch of bot messages and so on. Now, there are a couple of things. One is that the bot sometimes gets a little bit crazy. I don't know if this is something that we could streamline, but I think also in many occasions it's been because we have been in this process of transition where some branches had the changes that were coming from main that were enabling the CI, while some other branches or PRs didn't, right? And then, some of it, even if you were telling the bot, trigger this, well, it turns out that the bot will not be able to trigger it because without those changes to enable the CI, things will not work. Okay, those are a little bit maybe low-level details, but I think bottom line moving forward is whether we want to keep the process in place or whether we want to move to something slightly different. Now, we can, by the way, combine CI in Azure with GitHub. By the way, it's not like you have to choose one versus another. The advantage of doing any heavy lifting test on Azure is that we have resources, right, that we can use there. While I don't know what GitHub will get through the Apache organization by default, but I've seen some projects that start hitting into limits and so on. I also know some projects, I think in Hive, we used to have dedicated infra. So I don't know if we're gonna hit some of those limits and we care about this. But again, I wanted to bring it up also so people are a little bit aware of how things work and what is the context for those things. Yeah, I think Vinod, if you can share more of your experience, I think that would be fantastic because, again, we didn't have to deal with this Apache mess before, right? And again, the experience was good, but now it might be a little bit more terrible. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to share. So quick, thing for us is we started with Travis. As you know, Travis is no longer around, and Apache had one queue, and it would just clog up right all the time. So we didn't have bunch of resources around it. So at that point, I don't think we had GitHub and workflows and stuff in GitHub to go. So we basically modeled us after what Flink was doing, and I think I think you described it pretty accurately, how it works. So we don't have the permissions needed on the main repo for Azure to set up and manage the thing, right? So we have this mirror repo and all that. So I would say it's been, and then the main thing is Azure gives us free, for open source projects, you get free 10 parallel jobs or something for free. So it does help with the compute scaling, right? That was one of the main things for us to move to Azure. And it has like a nice experience around it. Like you can track flaky tests over time. You can like use the Azure DevOps to actually know a bunch of things. So those are advantages, I would say. To me, if we have to make the decision now, we need to simply look at what is the budget for each project on Apache. Like, for example, how many minutes of workflows are we allowed to run? You know, and get some clarity around that, and then we can make a call. That's the part that's not clear to me, if that helps. Like today we use both in Hoodie. The workflows are simply build across different combinations of Spark versions, Flink versions, and all that, and make sure the different builds succeed, right? It does, and it does like a basic quick start test. So think of this as like a simple smoke kind of thing, which basically makes sure that this PR is not breaking the build in different ways. And then the actual tests run in Azure. And and again, like the parallelism kind of helps. We get more compute to run more tests. So that's kind of the, in a nutshell, how we are using it. We would love to bring everything into the same thing. This does cause some kind of problems. People sometimes committers have merged things where they're not sure that the GitHub workflow is like green, and then like sometimes the bot misses like a notification, the last one success and stuff like that. So we fix these things over time, but there is that extra maintenance stuff. Now we've added a hook. So a lot of this, if we decide to do CI, we can just probably copy over or like replicate. We now have a check that will block the merge if you like more conservatively, if you don't have the CI like successful based on the last commit hash and things like that. But yeah, all in all, Azure CI, it runs on a different repo. It's on its own world, right? So it's a little bit harder to integrate it with the main repo. If we can get a good sense of how much workload we can run using GitHub workflows from Apache, I think this may help us streamline things. Yeah, for example, code coverage, like you can't turn that on the main repo, right? You need to still build this circuitous thing where somebody submits a PR, you need to like run it and then get it back into the thing. So those are all the main things. Most of the tooling expects that you're doing it on the repo that you are actually developing to, but we have to do the extra redirection step of doing it on the mirror repo and then getting it back to the original repo. That is the overhead.
Yeah, I think thanks a lot, Vinod. I think this helps. And also I will plus one, especially because I had to deal with this to enable it with all the complexity of this. This is felt, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. And again, I think there's something that we have to discuss over time. Probably we're not gonna fix today, but deal with all this complexity over time is challenging, because if something breaks, people need to be aware how things work. I try to document it again based on Hoodie documentation, Flink documentation, but still, the bot was stuck over the weekend. I kind of restarted and this and that. Well, I think at this stage, if I wasn't around, I mean, the bot probably would still be stuck, right? So yeah, I think having a single solution with everything integrated is much easier. Now, whether I can figure out a way to use those Azure resources and have a little bit more if needed, right? So I think this goes back to your point of walking back from what we really need here, right? And then make a decision based on that. Yeah, if we need those resources, we can use them. If we don't need them, of course, we can rely on GitHub on its own. Yeah, but I think in order of complexities, everything hosted by GitHub, it could be GitHub Actions plus Azure, GitHub hosted runners in Azure machines, right? And then, the solution that we have, I think, would be probably the third preference at this stage. Yeah. Yeah. So this discussion definitely helps. Yeah, I think it's something also that we should discuss also in the mailing list and so on. Yeah.
I had set this meeting for 15 minutes. We are already a few minutes past that. Do you want to continue discussion, or we take it in the next, especially about the website and docs, we take it to the mailing list?
I'm fine either way. I still have 5 minutes.
Maybe you can summarize, Kyle. And I think one action item, which generally the overarching theme is that we create these issues for everything, starting from CI, from renaming to the files and any other design docs, everything for that. We create discussions and issues in GitHub and so that people can contribute. Kyle, why don't you take a few minutes and summarize the website?
Yeah, just a question. I think we have a GitHub issue open for it as well on the hosting of the site and docs. I saw there was a proposal to do it in a separate repo. I've seen several projects also do it underneath a branch in the same repo. And maybe one that might be interesting. Maybe we can ask JB, or maybe if Dipankar knows a little bit as well. I saw also the Iceberg community just moved from a separate repo to under the branch. And I don't know if there are certain motivators they found certain benefits of going that direction or otherwise, but I don't know if people had thoughts or comments or ideas of how it should be hosted to follow the right Apache process.
Yeah, I mean, we can comment here or either exchange directly in the dev list. As you said, like there are pros and cons. I don't think there is a formal Apache obligation to go one way or the other. But yeah, I guess people have pros and cons, and I think it's better to take it to the dev list so that we keep this written and we don't have to force you or somebody else to keep notes of this here. So,
sounds good.
Awesome. So probably in a few weeks, we'll have the next community thing in the same format. If anyone has any suggestions or something, anyone who wants to moderate it next time, I'm more than happy. Let me know. But it was wonderful seeing you all, talking to you all. We made a lot of progress also, is what I believe. So thank you.
Thanks for setting it up.
Thank you, everyone. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.